Warning. The following is extremely addictive content. The original Savage Podcast may cause increased levels of success, happiness, and completely transform your life. You've been warned.
Welcome back, everybody. It is that time of the week again. It's time for another episode of the original Savage Podcast. This one, better strap in. We got a completely different point of view coming at you. Completely different thing that we have not covered yet. So it's going to be a good one. You better get the pen, the paper, the laptops, the iPads out. This is going to be it. So without further ado, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, I'm Rebecca O'Rourke, and I am a consulting hypnotist. I am the director and founder of Kawartha Hypnosis. So we really help people get into the zone. We help people with sports performance. We also help them, with confidence and fears and phobias, stop smoking, getting healthier, making better choices. So yeah, glad to be here today. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. So previously I've done some work or talked to some guys, like flow state type stuff. And I know that has become really big in the sports performance, arena. I think, man, my first foray into that realm was when Bob Rotella kind of blew up on the PGA Tour, and everybody on the PGA Tour kind of wanted to work with Bob Rotella, and he was just getting into that sports performance through the mental side of things, and now it's huge, it feels like. So yeah, I wanted to have you on because, again, that's just another perspective and another piece of the puzzle that people can use to really alter the way that they think and alter the way that they perform. So, I wanted to just start off by just asking you kind of the same question I ask everybody, just getting your perspective on it is, what is that one thing, what is that catalyst that creates real lasting change in your experience? What is that one thing that creates that transformation or creates that change for taking your performance to that next level?
So in my perspective, the one thing I would narrow it down to would be practicing rituals for the state of mind that's most useful for whatever you're doing, whether it be, golf has maybe a different zone than maybe lacrosse or some of the more intense sports. So finding that zone and then having rituals that help you anchor in that zone so that you can access it when you need it the most.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I think that's really key. I mean, you see it in the golf space a lot more than you see it in other sports where it's preached that it's hey, you've got to have a pre-shot routine. It's got to be the same every single time. You've got to go through the same steps before you do everything in golf. And in golf, it's really taught, as really, talked about. But in other sports, I feel like maybe basketball, because when someone's on the free throw line, they do the same exact thing in basketball. But I've
even worked with people who are in professional billiards. So martial arts, this really, anybody who's in any kind of competition, even academic performance, we are using some of the same tools and techniques to help them access the right zone for academics, which is a different zone again from sports, but still, again, the rituals of practicing the right amount of pressure. In sports, you want little more pressure than you want in academics, but anchoring in just enough so that, you've got all of your senses, you're ready to fire off on all cylinders, but not so much that you're pressuring out and over capsizing in that. So lots of different ways, lots of different professions and sports that we can help with this.
Yes, certainly. I mean, that's exactly what I think as well, is that it can be used anywhere. It's just you don't see that routine kick in as much in certain areas. And I think that is, whether it's self-talk or whatever it is, whether it's, just listen to a certain song or whatever, sales or any kind of business, most of us get in this doldrum of just showing up to the office and just doing what needs to be done, but it's not like there's no mental preparation a lot of the times for that. And I think that there is something to be said about that pre-game routine, pre-game ritual, right? Before you go on that dial session, right? Like sales closers are always about cold calling, things like that, right? So there's something to be said about that pre-game ritual or whatever it might be, habit that gets you through, gets you ready for that experience of the cold calls or the sales presentation or whatever it might be. And yeah, I think that a lot of areas are missing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, every sport has its rituals anyway. I mean, you're putting on your jersey, you're putting on your equipment, the camaraderie of the team as you're going out there. So as you're already performing the rituals that are happening regardless, where is your mind? What are you thinking about? Is it useful? So we can take the rituals that are already happening and we can kind of create, more useful ways of thinking. There's a lot of people out there that are participating in sports for the wrong reasons too. And that, of course, has an impact. Are you doing it for the money? Are you doing it for your parents? Are you doing it to, impress the girls? There's all kinds of reasons. So if it's the wrong reason, it's going to be really hard for you to be accessing the zone and practicing the rituals and really getting into that zone, because the pressure of pleasing other people and the expectations, it's not a good recipe for success. So doing it for yourself, for the love of the game, for the love of the competition is really, some things that we need to help people reframe sometimes.
No, absolutely. Definitely there has to be an identity to why you're doing something. There has to be an honesty within yourself. And I mean, we've talked about this on other episodes, for sure, that there's this internal honesty that has to happen if you want to access performance. And it's not to say, hey, if you're doing sports to get the girls or to look cool or whatever, that's not to say that you can't perform well, but you need to be honest about why you're doing it in order to make the most out of your performance.
Well, here's the thing is we can all be good at some things, but nobody can be good at everything. So what are you trying to be good at? If it's getting the girls, well, I suggest then, maybe you have some fun with the girls, but maybe, becoming a professional athlete isn't what you want to do.
Hey, this is true. But, yeah, I think that's what it is, though. Some people get lost in that internal honesty about why they're doing something, and then they kind of have like that identity crisis of, trying to juggle two balls because they're doing something for a different reason and not staying true to the identity of what that reason is. And then they're having this like internal fight because they're not living up to their expectations on one end, but really it's because they're expecting something, over here that's something completely different. And when you're not true or honest with yourself, it's hard to live up to.
It's really hard to get in the zone that way, for sure.
Yeah, definitely can't get. Listen, if you're trying to play golf and you go into, trying to make a putt, but you pull off your driver, not going to work very well sometimes. You got to make sure you're using the right tools.
Let's just for fun use romance as an example. When you're with somebody that's really special to you, the world kind of slows down and the outside world kind of disappears. If you've ever been on like a really amazing date and you're in the restaurant and it's just like almost like you can't hear or see everybody else around you and you're zoned in on the person in front of you. And so, that's kind of like a similar zone to what we want in sports, where you're kind of blocking out the rest of the world. It all sort of slows down around you, and you're really focused in on what's important to you, whether it be, the defense or the offense or scoring or whatever the case may be. But we all have different roles, and focusing on what that role is and being, slowing down time is what we hear a lot about, as far as making it easier to be in that zone and see everything that's happening. It's almost like how a lot of athletes describe it. Time slows down.
Absolutely. It's that tunnel vision. And I just mentioned this on last week's episode as well. Like, as people progress in the game and get better in the game, they talk about the game slowing down for sure. Like, somebody that's been in the NFL for 5 minutes, they look a lot different than somebody that's been in the NFL for 5 years or 15 years, right? And they talk about how it slows down. But it's like that with everything, if you prepare the right way, if you're mentally prepared the right way, because it is a reaction, right? And I talk about that all the time, is like, you do all the prep work, and then when it's game time or performance time, it's about the reaction, right? And I think sometimes I fail to mention how to transition, or talk about that transition of how do you transition from the prep phase, the study phase, the fundamental phase of just building the fundamentals the right way, to how do you just turn on or turn off the thinking switch and say, okay, now it's time to perform, now it's time to react. And I think what you're saying is exactly that routine, right? That routine is how you flip the switch from practice to perform.
Absolutely. But it's all one, because we also need to look at the practice, and there's a zone for practice. And putting a little bit more pressure on yourself in practice is actually useful, and letting go of that pressure when the game comes sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually a lot more useful. In practice, we want to trust that the repetition and the repetition and the repetition of that practice is just going to serve us well when the game time comes. And so part of the rituals that we're using for getting in the zone are accessing the resources that you have, and trusting that, the nervous system is going to respond the way that you need it to, and that the repetition is there. And so there's a certain amount of trust that we need to have when the game time comes. And there's a certain amount of maybe pushing yourself in the practices that need to happen. So, like I said, the zone is different for different outcomes. And in hypnosis, regardless of why people are coming here, we're always looking at what is the outcome, right? And the outcome dictates, everything that we teach them and how we teach it to them. So, the outcome in practice is different than the outcome in a game.
Absolutely. Yeah. The practice side of things has to be more intense, has to be more intentional, because that's when the work gets done. That's when things get fixed. That's when you can build those foundational blocks.
It's programming.
Yeah, programming. That's a great way to put it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Programming. It is programming. Yes.
And 100%. So part of what I do, I'm a hypnotist, but we combine neuro-linguistics programming. So a lot of the skills and tools that I'm teaching people, they're based on NLP. So, I don't know if you've heard of NLP, but it's
Absolutely.
Actually
been... It's a big sales technique too.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. All marketing, it's basically kind of based on NLP. So neuro is in the pathways of the brain, linguistics is in language. So, we're helping people use these tools and techniques that, advertisers are using to get you to buy things. And we're helping people use these tools and techniques to get you in the zone, in the state of mind, and maybe get you over some limiting beliefs, because there's times when we believe certain things that aren't useful. For instance, working harder gets you better results. And, in some areas that might be a useful belief, but like I said, in a game, it's not going to get you into the zone that's most useful for the outcome of winning that game. So, in NLP, there's tools and techniques that we're using. The circle of excellence is one of them. We use anchors, so some everyday anchors that you might know, or when you hear a song and it brings you back to an experience, or when you smell a perfume or a cologne and it reminds you of somebody that used to wear it. So the anchor is, the smell is anchored to the person and the sound is anchored to the experience. So we're using anchors, physical anchors, to help people anchor in that zone. So that way they're just choosing the anchor and it brings them right to that zone. And it can, the rituals of repetition of practicing the anchor over and over is part of, self-hypnosis, part of your getting ready for the game. And as you practice these things, they just become stronger and stronger and stronger. And you can do them for different things. So you can have a different anchor for a game, and you can have a different anchor for a romance, and you can have a different anchor for practicing. So that way we're accessing easily and choosing the way that we want to operate and what's most useful and resourceful for the outcomes we want to get wherever we are.
Man, I really like that, because in sales, in business, I think a lot of the times there's so much focus on what you say to the clients or what you say in your sales presentation. There's so many hours and hours and hours of training out there about that, right? Here's how you should overcome objectives. Here's how you should do this, and this, and this, and this. But there's not a lot on the internal conversation of how to get ready for that conversation, or what you should be telling yourself during that presentation or just before that.
Sales? Yeah, sales is a lot different. And I approach it quite differently, because sales is really all about the other person and nothing about you. And the more that you can do that, and the more that you can really practice getting yourself out of the way, the actual better you're going to be at sales. So whereas sports, it's all about you.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge thing. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying is there's so much focus on sales training with what you should be saying and right? Like there's hundreds of hours. Just Google it on, what you should be saying and how you overcome objections and all of these things, right? There's so much of that and not anything of how you think. Nothing of how you should be talking to yourself internally. Nothing on that. And when I do sales training, it's a lot about that, how you prepare for the meeting, not about being in the meeting and what you should say. It's more about the preparation for it and how you really get ready for that. So I'm glad we're on the same page there. But yeah, like that's exactly what it is in sales. It's not about what you say. It's about how you prepare, and it's about the other person. And in sports, it is about you and how you prepare. And that's where that similarity runs in. No, in performance time, it's a little bit different. It's about you versus about the client. But the preparation is still the key in both areas, because that is where, in my opinion, is where the performance comes from. Is how you prepared, how you readied yourself. Because in the sales side of things, I think if you don't have, I call them trigger words or setting a trap, is that you go into the call or the presentation or however you sell, if you don't go in looking for a specific outcome or a specific word or trap or phrase or whatever it might be, like I said, set a trap. And then when you get that, boom, everything's done. You move on to the next step. And for me, that's how because I've trained so many people with sales, and then it comes back and they say, okay, well, the client said this, what should I do next? And it's like, hey, you've already missed the opportunity. If you're coming to me and saying, hey, they said this, and you didn't know what to do at that moment, you've already missed the opportunity. It's already over. It's like the best example I can give is a baseball reference, right? Somebody throws a fastball and the hitter turns around and says, hey, coach, he threw a fastball. What should I do? Right? It's the opportunity's over. It's about the preparation and understanding what you need to do in certain situations, but also setting yourself up for that success, right?
Absolutely.
And that is where I think in business and in sales, we lose it a lot of the time, is that internal conversation of preparation and setting ourselves up for success.
So, based on how we look at things, we look at things like really, really big picture. And as a hypnotist, it's important that we try not to get too detailed about things. So we're really looking at what is the big picture outcome for each person. And then, so like, I remember when I first became a hypnotist many, many years ago, there's a zone for practicing. There's a zone for rehearsing the material. There's a zone for being smart. But that zone is not the same zone as for being with people. So like you're talking about, what the preparation before the sales meeting is not the same zone as you want to be in when you're in the sales meeting. So there's some sort of rituals that we can do, or some sort of mindfulness practices, or, there's all kinds of things that we can do to help us shift from one zone to the next zone, from being smart to being with people, because they both kind of pull on accessing different resources. And, being smart isn't necessarily the best thing to do with people.
I 100% agree. What is it that it's Einstein? I think it's Einstein's quote, something about true genius is taking complicated situations and making them simple, or something like that, something to that effect, right? I think way too often I've seen, especially in my industry, people want to sound smart. They want to talk up here because they want to be able to sell themselves through that. It's like, oh, hey, look how smart I am. I'm the only person that can understand this. You don't understand what I'm talking about, right? So you have to have me help you because you don't understand it. And in that way, it's demeaning, right? It's taking confidence away from your client. It's not the right way to go about it, for sure. It is in no way, shape, or form. I can tell you that I've made more closes by saying, I mean, it can't be that difficult. I'm just old country boy. I can't make it, but so difficult, right? I can't be, but so smart, right? I've made more closes talking down about my intelligence than I have trying to sound smart.
The only time you should talk about yourself is when you're kind of making fun of yourself, because
absolutely,
it's not really about you when it comes to sales or being with people. Otherwise, you might as well just
say it again for the people in the back. Say it again for the people in the back.
It's not about you.
Man, this social media is gonna have a field day with that one. They all these sales gurus out here with 1 million followers out here trying to talk about how cool they are. They're not gonna like that line. It's not about you. What? What?
Mm-hmm.
They ain't gonna know what to do with that one.
Well, that's okay. I'm sure there's many ways to get to a destination, but we like to be the most ethical that we possibly can be. And in hypnosis, there's a lot of kind of taboo around it already. Like, I have to be honest, I've been a hypnotist for a very long time. And in those years, I've seen a lot of other hypnotists, and I've been to a lot of conventions around the world. And I can't tell you that everybody in my profession is operating at an ethical standard.
Right.
I do understand that, there's some confusion or fear or misconceptions around what hypnosis does. So I'd really like for people to know that, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. And, other people, everybody has a subconscious. There's really no question about that. Whether people are successful using hypnosis is really just determining on whether, they are sincere about wanting to do things differently or make a change, because we can't actually make people do anything they don't want to do, despite what some marketing out there might claim. And the other most important thing is that they're actually willing to follow the instructions. You'd be surprised at how many adults and kids are awesome subjects, but adults who don't want to follow instructions.
Hey, trust me, I understand that. There's one of our episodes you can go back and listen to. We talk about how you can give somebody a sales script and an instruction manual on how to be successful in a specific arena, and they will completely rewrite it, do everything the exact opposite of what you tell them to do. Following the instructions is not an adult's best attribute most of the time. There is no doubt about that. I have seen it firsthand so many times. But again, I think it comes back to that intelligence factor, right? We all want to be smart. We want to do it our way because we're smarter. And I think that's what it is a lot of the time.
Yeah. So that's why, we offer free screening. We don't ever take on a client before we meet with them and determine if it's a good fit, if they're, sincere and willing to follow the instructions. And we usually do a couple little fun tests in the free screening just to make sure that they're willing to come along. And, and then if we determine that it is a good fit, then we come up with a program for them. And depending on what their outcome is, sometimes it's just a couple of sessions. Sometimes they need, a couple months of sessions, and that's okay, right? So, hypnosis is really this idea of relaxation, repetition, and fixation. So we're fixating on an outcome, and we're using relaxation and repetition and suggestions into your subconscious to make it so that it's more automatic, right? So it's kind of like, when you go to the movies, and if it's funny, you laugh, and if it's sad, you cry, and the movie's not real, right? Or it's kind of like when you end up in your driveway and you just wonder where the last 8 blocks of the route disappeared to. Okay. So anything we do over and over again and you don't have to think about it anymore, that comes from your subconscious. So we really want to input suggestions into that automatic place for resources and states of mind and beliefs, and so that these things are happening more automatically rather than just trying to be smart and rational about it. Because sometimes the more we're trying to be logical and rational, it's like our rational brain, it has so much in there. There's no filter. Everything is welcome. So it's like congested. There's too much going on. Whereas your subconscious, it's like reserved for only the things that you need, the things that are, emotionally attached to you, breathing, walking. So there's this filter. In science, they call it the critical factor. So in hypnosis, we're kind of putting that critical factor to sleep so that we can fire in suggestions into that more automatic place inside of you. That way you're moving forward with the things that you want more automatically, rather than the old patterns and that old program or that old broken record just playing over and over and over again. Because, hey, that's human nature. Until you decide to change it, it's just going to keep going the way it always has. So, there's a lot of, stage hypnosis. There, I have actually done quite a few stage shows in my day too. And they are a lot of fun. The outcome for stage hypnosis is just fun. But, there's a lot of misconception around what we actually do in the clinical office, based on, people clucking like chickens or, things like that. So it's important that that the people up on those stage and the people that are clucking like chickens, they all actually want to be doing those things, right? They want to be entertaining the people. They want to be following the hypnotist's suggestions. They want to have fun. And so if I ever did offer them a suggestion that was against their morals or values or beliefs, all that would happen is they would just ignore me.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. We want to, there has to be that want, right? There has to be the want. There has to be the intent. And like you said, they want to have fun. That's why they're there. It's to have fun and laugh and be, if they go on stage, then it's because they want the attention of being up there, right? But it's the same thing, right? When getting ready for performance, we have to have the want and the intent, and we have to lay it out. This is exactly what I need to do to improve. This is what I need to get that performance to the level that I want it to be at, whether it's in sales or business or whether it's in sports. And again, my whole premise of this podcast is that crossover between the two is right there in front of it. And so I think that that's what gets lost a lot, is that intent, right? And understanding, because I think a lot of the times that self-talk, sometimes, let's just use baseball. That was the last reference I used. It's that self-talk and that intent gets lost, right? So instead of standing there at the plate and thinking, hit the ball, because that's the goal, is to hit the ball, people are saying, don't strike out. Don't do this. And coming from a golf perspective, when I played competitive golf, it was very ingrained not to use negative words and not to think about the trouble. Don't say, hey, don't hit it in the water, or don't say, oh, there's water over there, because then, of course, your mind goes to it. And so I think that I have seen it a little bit more than the average person, because I play competitive golf, because in the golf space, that mental side of things was very talked about for a long time with the Bob Rotellas and people like that, the sports psychiatrists. But I think that that's something that needs to be worked on a lot more than it is.
And what you're referring to is actually the subconscious.
Right.
The subconscious does not understand negative connotation. So we typically always teach people self-hypnosis, because, like I said, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis anyway. And the big part of that teaching for a lot of people is this idea of putting things in what you do want instead of what you don't want. And, it's kind of interesting, and this might get a little scientific for you, so I apologize, but there's actually like 250 million pieces of data coming at us at every second, and our human brain can only pay attention to 150 of those pieces. That's it, right? So what we're doing is we're sorting and distorting and deleting and generalizing information so that we can kind of condense it down to that tiny little fraction. So a lot of people, they're either sorting by connection or they're sorting by distinction, right? So if you're already sorting by connection, but like I could put 5 things in front of somebody who sorts by connection, and they're going to tell me what's similar or what they like about those 5 things. And I could put the same 5 things in front of somebody who sorts by distinction, and they would tell me what's different or what they don't like about those 5 things. So it's really, a lot of times we've trained ourselves to filter the information in a certain way, whether it be based on the way we were raised, or sometimes we go into distinction because we're not safe and we need to pay attention to what's not safe around us. So there's all kinds of reasons that people get into these patterns, or they're looking for certain things, but we're really getting what we're looking for. And so putting into the subconscious, what we do want is kind of like, if you told your subconscious don't eat junk food, then you go start looking for the junk food. Don't look at the purple elephant. What?
It's the it's that the thing, you don't ever see the car until you buy it, and then you see it everywhere. You're like, oh my God, everybody has this car. And it's like, no, it's the same thing, but you're looking for it, right?
That's the exact example that I give to a lot of people. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Once you buy it, you see it everywhere.
Yeah. It's because
and they didn't start making more cars.
No, those cars were already there.
That's right.
No, that's exactly what it is. And I think that so many people don't understand the subconscious and don't understand.
I actually have an audio program, an audio hypnosis program that I give to a lot of clients. It's called Sorting for What I Like, right? It's this idea to help people shift from that pattern of distinction over to connection, so that it's so much easier for them to, know what they want, be able to put it in those positive terms, to be able to, see it exactly the way they want to, feel it, hear it, smell it, get into the senses of it. And if people are naturally by distinction, it's really hard for them to, get what they want because they're so focused on what they don't want.
Yeah. And so I think that that's the thing in, like, especially in sales, right? And that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is people are focused on like a lot of the times the salespeople are focused on themselves instead of the client, but they're also focused on what they don't want to hear. So then they focus on hearing what they don't want, right? They're like, oh, well, make sure that they don't say this and don't say this, and I got to make sure that they're not going to respond with they focus so much on the objections that they find objections that aren't even there from the person, right? They're making up objections like, oh my God, this person just said this. That means that they don't like this, and it's like, you're the one creating the objections. You as the salesperson are creating the objections because that is what you're scared of. And so you're telling yourself subconsciously, hey, don't let them say this. Don't let them say this. But your subconscious is just hear this, say this, feel this. And you're creating objections that were never there.
I'm a firm believer on what you put out is what you get back. And you change the output, you change the input. Change the input, you change the output.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that so many people don't understand that. And I think what makes it worse is that coaches don't understand that.
Well, coaches is in sports coaches. The professional ones maybe have had some training, but I have to tell you though, there's a lot of different levels of playing in sports, and I've raised a few kids in my day and taken them through a lot of sports as well as played some sports of my own, and then worked with athletes on top of that. And I tell you that the kids' sports can be wildly competitive with the parents, and the coaches have no idea how to manage these dynamics and situations. Sure, they know how to play the game, but do they know, this idea of leadership and dynamics of people and how to kind of get people moving together instead of, against each other? So I've seen some pretty wild things in the arenas.
Well, in youth sports, you talk about 250 million pieces of information coming at you. Well, that's youth sports right there in a nutshell. That's youth sports. Because you got the coach trying to tell the kid something, the kid thinking about 427 different things. Maybe 20 of them might be about the actual game they're playing. The rest of them are about something else. Then you got the dad telling something from the sidelines. Then you got the mom yelling something from the sidelines.
Oh,
then
the moms are brutal.
Then you got the grandma saying something from the sidelines.
That'd be me.
And then the kid turns around and sees that their parents are videotaping them. So that sends them in a whole different direction. So you talk about 250 million pieces of information. That is youth sports in a nutshell when kids are at the plate. So it's, and for me, like I coach my son's baseball team. I say it every episode, I feel like. And, but like right now I have this situation where it's completely different than anything I've dealt with before, because like, for whatever reason, I've always had teams that are similar to how my son is. My son, he works his butt off, and I don't give him enough credit because I like to push him harder, but he works his butt off to be where he's at. But he's also very confident because he works his butt off. And right now, like, I'm dealing with a bunch of kids that have zero confidence and zero trust in what they're doing. Even though they've done drills, even though they've gotten hits in the game, even though they've gotten hits in the cage, even though they've done these things that are positive, they have zero confidence. It's like complete and total reset every time they get up there. Hey, you just had success. I should see more confidence the next time you're up there. And and they don't have the confidence the next time they're up there.
No.
It's so different.
Can I teach you a little bit of a tool or a technique that might help them?
Absolutely. It'll help everybody.
Okay, cool. So I mentioned earlier the circle of excellence. And so how old is the age group that you're dealing with?
9 and 10.
19?
9 and 10.
Oh, 9 and 10. Okay. So that's a wonderful age. So the circle of excellence is really this idea of Well, there's two ways, right? So one is accessing a resource state that you already have, but kids at that age maybe don't have the resource state already. So what we do is we use modeling technique, and then we're anchoring in modeling techniques. So kids at that age love to use their imagination. And at that age, modeling like a superhero that they love, or somebody that, that they feel has like all kinds of powers that are maybe more than ordinary, let's say, or even someone that they admire, or an athlete that, that they already follow. So what we do is we take the resources of that superhero or that famous athlete or that person that they admire and respect, and then we have them kind of imagine that these resources are in a circle. And then we have them step into the circle, and we can do like a deep breath and a fist, right? As they imagine stepping into that person and being that person, and what that feels like and sounds like, and, what it would be like to have superpowers or be like the famous person where everybody just is there cheering you on. And so it's like, as you anchor in with this deep breath and fist, as you practice this more and more and more, it's helping them access this, greater than they have access to right now. And it's modeling perhaps something that they don't already know, so they can pretend until they actually learn those skills themselves. So you kind of just have this sort of imaginary process, have them imagine a circle. It could be like a hula hoop. It could be made out of hockey pucks. It could be made out of anything. But really have them imagine it, because it's getting them out of trying to please you. It's getting them out of trying to be smart and rational. And it's helping them get into a different center of their brain. So when they can imagine it, and you kind of check in with them and make sure that they are actually imagining it, then you put in all those skills, and you can even put in, some pieces of them that are already confident sometimes in their life where they're, because we all have things that we're good at. Maybe they're already good at video games, right? Maybe they're already good at math in school and they feel really confident in some areas of their life. So if you take some area that they're already really confident and they don't have to really worry too much about it, and you add those resources into the circle, and then you have them anchor in those resources too, it's almost like you just do this deep breath and fist, and it's like, wow, I can pull on, being confident here and modeling maybe resources I don't already have just with a deep breath and fist.
No, that makes perfect sense. Except for my kid, he has zero imagination. He's the most literal child on the face of the earth. And then I have another one that says his cars talk to him. But hey, it's okay. It's okay. They
need to spend more time with each other.
Yeah, they gotta blend. That's the problem. They gotta blend, because one of them, if you tell him it's blue, he's gonna be like, "Oh no, that is aquamarine." I don't know what you're talking about. Something crazy like that. He's he has zero imagination. But it's okay, because he has the confidence through his work. So that's something that really works.
Yeah, people are typically either visual, audio, or kinesthetic. So sometimes when we think people don't have an imagination, sometimes it's because they're not visual, they don't see things, or they don't, they're more kinesthetic. So it's possible that one son is more audio or kinesthetic, and his imagination is based more on what he feels, not so much what he can see. So with that, and using the idea of the circle of excellence, you would have him imagine soaking up all of those great qualities and really have him feel what it feels like, and tap into the kinesthetic parts of things, because he'll resonate with that a lot more. And then the other kids that are more visual, they'll be able to see what's happening with the circle a lot more. So there's going to be variations of how different people experience this. But this particular technique is audio, visual, and kinesthetic, so that we're getting all the aspects. Kids
works.
Are fun though, yeah. But adults are like that too.
Oh no, there's no doubt. Kids are definitely easier to coach and train than adults are. There's no doubt about that, because there's already a respect factor there, like because of the age. That kids will listen typically.
Sometimes, but there's also these behavioral things that kids are more let's say it's more important to kids at a certain age for their peers to accept them than it is for them to actually do well. And if they feel like doing well is how their peers are going to accept them, then they do that. But there's also other ridiculous things that I've seen them do. I had this one young girl, she was 12 when she came into the office, and her parents had taken her to all kinds of different other specialists because they thought she had some sensory problems in her feet. Because every time she put on her skates before the game, she would put them on and take them off and put them on and take them off. And, oh, it feels weird, it feels weird, it feels weird. And there was like this big ordeal that happened before every practice and every game. And the parents were just really getting frustrated. They tried special socks. They tried sensory specialists. They tried all kinds of different things before they came to hypnosis, which is typical. So when she came, we thought maybe it was a subconscious thing at first, but it turns out that it was actually, I've worked with a lot of kids in the school board before he became a hypnotist, so I know kids quite well. But it turns out that it was more of a behavioral thing, that when she first started to do this, her peers in the dressing room thought it was hilarious. And so she kept doing it, and then it just kept getting, more dramatic and more dramatic until it just became a habit. And at some point, everybody started getting annoyed with it, but she created this sort of habit for herself. And then, as a 12-year-old, she just didn't really know how to break the habit. So a lot of it for her was reframing the attention that she wants to get from her peers and helping her, give her tools and techniques to, form new habits. And her parents were quite happy. They ended up coming to see me themselves as clients and sending her siblings. They sent me a lot of referrals. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that outcome. It's
right.
Like you say, reframing the outcome and reshaping the outcome of what is, and then again, and of course at 12, it's going to be hard to really have that self-awareness of what is your actual goal, what is your actual outcome. And, we talked about this earlier, this, circle back.
That's right.
And that's typically how these podcasts work. But there's that, the circle moment of being honest about what you actually want the outcome to be. Because right there it is. It's like, hey, you formed this behavior because you wanted this outcome. And then you weren't at that point honest that, hey, I'm not getting that outcome anymore. I'm not getting the laughs or the whatever, and needing to break that cycle. But again, at 12 years old, they're not going to understand to be self-aware. And granted, at 30 and 40 and 50, there's a lot of people that are not self-aware enough to be able to break the habits they're doing either. So not just saying that it's only 12-year-olds that can't be self-aware enough, but again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, and that you have to be honest about where you want the outcome to be. What do you want to get out of whatever you're doing? It doesn't matter if it's in sports or if it's coaching or if it's in business and in sales. You have to be honest about what that outcome actually has to look like, or what you actually want to achieve with that outcome. And then you can build, in my opinion, may be different in the subconscious realm, but in my opinion, once you're honest about that outcome, then you can build the roadmap on how to get there. Then you can figure out how you need to practice, how you need to prepare, how you need to get in the zone to then perform and get that outcome. But you have to have a clear vision of what that outcome is first.
Absolutely. Yep. There's a great book. It's kind of an old one, but it's called Hypnosport by Les Cunningham. So that book is really kind of teaching the same concepts that we're teaching very closely. So that's a good resource that I could suggest to you. I also have a sports and academic hypnosis audio program that I would be happy to send to you anyway.
For sure.
And you can check it out and help yourself with your golf game. I have one separate for sports, and then I have one separate for golf. So you can let me know which one you would like, and I will send that as a thank you for having me on your show today.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I've gone through the golf side of things several times, and I don't get to play as much because, the two kids I got. But anyways, they I think that's what's missed a lot, is that preparation phase, right? Like, or that trigger and anchor, as you called it, anchor, right? That anchor of that switch. I think in sales, I think that preparation isn't there most of the time. But also the way that we talk to ourselves before we go into it is missed. And in sports, I think a lot of people miss that trick of game time, flip the switch. I think some people understand it and they have these rituals. And, a lot of the times in the media, there's like, people make fun of it. Oh, this person's superstitious and always has these rituals that they do and blah, 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 blah. But there is really something to be said about it. But it also takes the discipline to actually put yourself through it, no matter what the outside influences say. I've, again, from a personal experience and seeing it, going on the golf course and actually sitting there and taking the time to be disciplined, do the exact same thing before every single shot, envision the shot, envision the outcome. It makes the game easier. The actual game is easy, but it makes the process harder a little bit, because you have it would depend on the setting. If it's in a tournament setting, it's not necessarily going to make it harder. But if you're playing with your friends and you're taking 2 to 3 minutes for every shot, they're going to start to say things of, oh, you play so slow, or this, that, and the other. And that may make the process harder.
Not to mention the guys that are creeping up behind you that want to take a shot next.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And there's this big thing in golf about slow play right now. Everybody's into slow play. No. Listen, I live in Myrtle Beach. I live in the golf capital of the world. You ain't never seen slow play until you come to Myrtle Beach. Promise you. There's 6-hour rounds around here sometimes. One, because they pack it full, but two, because people are paying $250 a round. And so they're like, I'm going to play from the back tees, and they can't play from the back tees. But it's, so it might make the process a little less enjoyable, but I think that's where identifying that outcome and being honest about that outcome comes into play. Is, do you want to just have fun with your buddies, or do you want to actually get better? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be the best athlete on the team, or do you just want to have fun with the other kids on the team?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I also believe that it's part of these daily habits that we have every single day, day in, day out. How do you sleep? How do you eat? How do you take care of your fitness every day? How do you work on your confidence? Like, all of these things of your daily, just who you are and what you do every day, impact your success, whether it be in sports or sales, no matter what you're doing. So there's all these aspects that we're talking about, but then there's also these, really simple concepts that maybe not are always being met either. How many times have, someone showed up to play a sport and they're dehydrated and your body is just not able to perform that way? So there's both of these aspects of, the biochemical aspect of it and the mental and subconscious aspect of it as well. So we blend it together.
These baselines that are different every day. Every day right. you have a different baseline. And it's mm-hmm. not that sometimes expecting to perform the way you did the day before, it's impossible. You're expecting the impossible. And I think that in the sports realm, that's gotten a little bit different, a little bit better, and a little bit more understood with the like tracking, sleep tracking, and the Apple Watches and the Whoop bands. I think that's what they're called, Whoop. A lot of golfers.
There it is.
Yeah, a lot of golfers wear that one, Whoop. But
giving my age away.
Hey, listen. You got to relate it somehow, right? You got to relate it to something. Hey, that's probably why they have it. Name it. I don't know. But because it has nothing to do with sports performance, in my opinion. So I don't know why they named it Whoop, but it's called Whoop. And all these trackings, and it's that gives you that baseline. One of the guys that's extremely controversial, but in my opinion, and probably one of the best pitchers in the world, is for baseball, is Trevor Bauer. And he talks about it all the time, and he uses an app and helped develop an app called 4App. And every day it gives you a readiness score of where are you at athletically for the day. Should you throw hard or should you take it easy? It uses a recovery day. And that's, obviously not everybody's going to go into that level of tracking and following to see where their body's at. But we do need to understand that it's like every day can't be a peak performance day. Every day cannot be the best of the best. Olympians train for 4 years for one day.
And, I love technology and I love how far technology has come. But the truth is we can do that without technology by simply having this open mind-body connection and really kind of checking in with ourselves and seeing where things are at and what our body needs and actually being willing to take action and give it to it. And so that's really what I'm getting at with we need to have really great rituals every day of, just taking care of ourselves. And if we're doing the same kind of healthy rituals day in, day out of self-care and preparation for sports and games, then it's more likely that we can have a consistent basis. But, if we're all over the place with how we take care of ourselves and where relationships are at and, we're jumping from job to job or this or that, then it's really hard for, those needs to be consistent. So if you're really serious about being a fantastic athlete, rituals of self-care and habits every single day make the difference in the long run. And adding in the habits for confidence and the right zone and the most useful, resourceful state of mind becomes, the extra little kick that people need to be super successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, it's not about technology necessarily. It's about having that understanding of your body and understanding of being honest with yourself. Like you can fool technology. Like that app that I said, right? That app that I said that they use, it asks questions on how you're feeling. You can say, I feel great, I feel great, I feel great, I feel great. And it's going to say, all right, cool, you're great. Your score for the day is 100, right? You can fool the app. The app's not going to understand. It is about having that connection and being honest with yourself of how do you feel today? Are you ready to perform or are you not ready? How does it actually feel?
And what do you need to do to get ready to perform?
Right. And it can be a little bit different, right? It can be a little bit different every day. The rituals, like you say, the preparation doesn't have to be exact. It could be just the process, right? Like, hey, I take this long to do this. In general, like let's say stretching, for instance, I take 20 minutes to stretch. Well, maybe your hamstrings are a little tighter that day, so you stretch your hamstrings a little extra. So you're doing a little bit different, but the overall stretching routine is still 20 minutes. And that's still being true to the ritual and being true to the preparation, but you alter it based on the day because of your legs or this, that, the other. And I think that, again, because the only thing I know to talk about is golf, it's when Tiger Woods was in his peak, they literally would cover his schedule because it was perfectly executed every time. He got to the course an exact amount of time before his tee time. He spent an exact amount of time on the putting, an exact amount of time on the drive, an exact amount of time tying his shoes, right? Everything was exact. Yes, within that, there was a little bit of variation based on the day. When he got on the driving range, his last 10 shots or so were to emulate the first few holes of the day, what holes he was about to go play. So obviously at different courses, that's going to be different. Or if he's starting on a different hole, that's going to make it different. So there's a little bit of intricacy to the ritual, but it was still exactly timed out to be the same exact way every time. And I don't know that there's much argument, but there may be some argument, but he's pretty much the most dominant athlete of all time when it comes to actually how he performed compared to his peers and what he actually did, not just in the golf space, but in all spaces. And you can look, and Michael Jordan has said that. Rafael Nadal has said that. A lot of the other tennis players have said that Tiger Woods was the most dominant performer of all time. The ritual can be there, but you can still alter it.
Great examples.
Yeah. So I think that's a great way to wrap this up, is just understanding that we can be true to the ritual side of things and the preparation side of things, but alter it to make sure that we're getting the best out of ourselves with that honest conversation of what do I need. So yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap it up and kind of give everybody a breather, because man, we got a lot of work to do after this episode. You guys got to y'all better get on it. But yeah, just shout out your stuff one more time, where everybody can find you, how they can get in contact with you, all that good stuff.
Awesome. So Kawartha Hypnosis, Kawartha Hypnosis. So you can find me at kawarthahypnosis.com, on Facebook at Kawartha Hypnosis, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm pretty much on all the platforms. So just Google Kawartha Hypnosis and you will find me.
All the places. That's right. We'll have the links down in the description anyway, so make it easy on you. But yeah, everybody get to work, because that was some stuff that we can put into play right now and get to work on. But next week, we will have another episode. You already know. Let's go.